Hello class, you're welcome to our second video of Senior 2. We've been looking at Newton's laws of motion. So we had stopped on the first law, we look at the effects. Now we are going to begin with our second law of motion. So in the second law of motion, we are saying it states that the rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force, and it takes place in the direction of the force. Here we come up with our equation that force F is directly proportional to the mass times the final velocity minus the mass times initial velocity over our time. Why are we dividing with time? We have what we call the rate. When you are dealing with the rate in physics, rate means time, so we divide by time. Then the velocity is final and then initial. Then we come here and then say this cross which you're seeing is what we call the constant or the proportionality sign. So we have mass into, when you calculate terms, we shall have V minus U over our time. But from our work which we looked at some time back, we all agree that from acceleration A equals to V minus U over T, where V is our final velocity, U is our initial velocity, and then our time which is down. So instead of having V minus U over T, we shall substitute this with the letter A. So this one brings us to force is directly proportional to mass times acceleration. Then here we cannot solve such equations. That's why we say let's introduce the constant of proportionality, that is K. Then when you bring in K, we shall have F equals to K MA, where mass and then times acceleration. When we come this side and then look at, when we consider a force of 1 Newton being applied to a body of mass 1 kilogram to give it an acceleration of 1 meter per second, we shall end up getting the value of K equaling to 1. So this is the standard value for the constant which you introduced down there. So now when you introduce that constant, if you substitute 1 where the constant was, we shall remain with mass times acceleration. Therefore, our second law summarizes the equation that F equals to mass times acceleration. This is our second law of motion, which was developed by the Newton. Then when you look at, because somebody may ask you, what is the SI unit of force? We all know very well that the SI unit of force is Newton's, but they may tell you, define for me Newton. Now when they tell you to define Newton, here we shall say, this is a force applied on a body of mass 1 kilogram to give it an acceleration of 1 meter per second squared. That one marks the end of our second video about the Newton's second law of motion. Hope to meet you when you meet me.